coming up on BCN today. Alberta sees its first vaping-related illness as the province halts its sales of vape cartridges. Plus, a candlelight vigil to be held this evening for Marshall Iwasa on his 27th birthday. And Australia's wildfires expected to go from bad to worse this weekend.
Your Canada. Your Southern Alberta. Your stories. From our studios in the heart of Lethbridge, it's BCN Today with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, thank you for joining us on this first Friday of 2020. Alberta has seen its first vaping-related illness. Health officials say the first person in Alberta reported to have contracted a severe vaping-related lung illness is recovering at home. Officials have declined to provide any additional information about the patient to protect their privacy, but Dr. Dina Hinshaw, Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health, says the province is monitoring the situation and working with health officials across Canada. The case brings the number of reported vaping-related illnesses across the country to 15. And because of this reported illness, Alberta is holding off on sales of cannabis vape cartridges as the province awaits results of a review of its Tobacco and Smoking Reduction Act. The provincial government cited health concerns for postponing the products, which fall under the second phase of Canada's cannabis legislation involving the sales of edibles and other derivatives. Cannabis vaping cartridges have now entered the market in other parts of the country, while sales have been banned in Quebec, Newfoundland, and Labrador. A candlelight vigil is being held this evening to bring awareness to the disappearance of Marshall Iwasa, who was last seen in Lethbridge November 17th. Today is Iwasa's 27th birthday. According to the Facebook page his family has set up, the vigil will be held at 6:30 p.m. at Winston Churchill High School. Candles will be provided by the family. They also plan on live streaming the event for anyone who is not able to attend tonight. The Christmas Hope campaign has wrapped up with some very successful numbers. This year, 1,892 adults and 4,263 children were helped out. Christmas Hope is a collaboration between 5 local agencies, including the 2 food banks, the Salvation Army, Lethbridge Family Services, Angel Tree, and My City Care Shop of Wonders. Families who received help this year were the recipients of food hampers and toy bundles, all thanks to support from around the community. 2 youths have been charged following a home invasion on New Year's Eve. Officers responded to a residence in the 100 block of Simon Fraser Boulevard West at around 11 p.m. on December 31st, after getting reports that several people entered a home wearing disguises and carrying pellet guns. The pellet guns were discharged into property, causing a small amount of damage. The suspects fled prior to police arrival. No one inside the home was injured. Later, a vehicle involved in the incident was located and 5 people were taken into custody. 2 17-year-old boys have been charged. They were released by a justice of the peace to appear in Lethbridge Provincial Court at a later date. The occupants of the residence and the suspects were known to each other, and this incident is believed to be a targeted occurrence. Police in Medicine Hat responded to an incident at the Medicine Hat Mall yesterday where a man had been assaulted by another mall patron. A 72-year-old man sustained serious injuries. Police were alerted to the location of a male suspect who was attempting to leave the scene on foot. The 40-year-old man was challenged by police and taken into custody without further incident. Investigators sectioned off part of the mall in order to conduct an investigation. The victim was transported to the Medicine Hat Regional Hospital. Police believe this was an isolated incident as the accused and the victim are known to each other. The drug crisis continues in many towns and cities across Alberta. The interim police chief for Lethbridge, Scott Woods, stopped by our studios recently. Chief Woods says the problem is not just opioids.
There's a drug crisis through Alberta, I would suggest in the prairies. Methamphetamine, I would suggest, is the biggest issue right now. And that's not to speak down upon the opioid issue. The opioid issue is a serious issue, but the difference between that and the meth is some of the more erratic behaviors we're seeing. So I think it's touching the prairie provinces in particular right now in a pretty impactful way.
Chief Woods will have more on the drug and crime issues in Lethbridge coming up in the second half of our show. A 16-year-old mountain climber was rescued after he fell 500 feet on Oregon's Mount Hood this week and survived. A rescue team on skis brought him down the mountain to a waiting ambulance. His father was interviewed and called him a very brave kid.
So yeah, he's an avid hiker. He's just turned 16 and this was his 98th summit. So he's really into this, and he came yesterday and slept in the car with his friend, and today they started the hike. So I got a call somewhere in the afternoon that he's got hurt. So I just drove right now. Yeah. He's like, sorry dad, they've put me on drugs, on fentanyl. I'm sorry about that. He's in good spirits. He's a very brave kid, and I'm very proud of him. Well, his friend told me that he was the bravest out of the group. He's a teenager, right? So he was up in the front, and yeah, it was very icy conditions, and he fell and he tried to arrest the fall with his ex, but it just didn't go in, and he just kept sliding down and gaining momentum, so he couldn't stop. Yeah. I'm all praying, my family's praying, everybody back home in India, my mom, my dad, they're all praying. We are just so thankful that it's turned out the way it has.
A man pulled out a shotgun at a Texas church service and fired on worshipers last Sunday, killing 2 people before he was shot to death by congregants who fired back, according to police. 64-year-old Tony Wallace, an usher, and 67-year-old Richard White, a volunteer security guard at the church, were killed in the shooting. The man who fatally shot the gunman seconds after he opened fire was a deacon. Jack Wilson says he had trained others in his Texas church to use guns to protect the congregation.
When the individual came into the building, we were aware that there was some concerns for him. We were already watching him. We had cameras turned on him. He had on a fake beard and a fake wig with a toboggan on his head and wearing a long coat. The whole thing was less than 6 seconds from start to finish. He went and started towards the front of the sanctuary, and that's when I was able to engage him, and I took the shot. The shooter went down. Went over to cover and pulled the shotgun away from his body. My goal was to make sure the shooter didn't get up. He was down, he was bleeding profusely from his head, and the only movement was, just body twitching, which, happens, when someone is in that condition where they're about to die. I don't see myself as a hero. I see myself as doing what needed to be done to take out the evil threat. I don't feel like I killed an individual, I killed evil.
China, Russia, and France are among the global powers warning the world has become a more dangerous place after the U.S. assassinated Iran's top general near Baghdad airport. They are urging restraint. Iran's supreme leader is vowing harsh retaliation against U.S. troops in the region for the death of General Qasem Soleimani, saying, quote, "This is the time to clear the region from these insidious beasts," end quote. The U.S. says it killed Soleimani because he was actively developing plans to attack Americans. Meanwhile, oil prices are surging on concerns Iran might respond to the killing of its top general by disrupting global supplies of energy from the Middle East. The international benchmark for crude oil jumped 4.5% in London, while the American contract was up 4.3%. About 20% of oil traded worldwide goes through the Strait of Hormuz, where the shipping lane is only 3 kilometers wide and tankers have come under attack this year. Well, the situation in Australia's fire zones is expected to go from bad to worse this weekend as temperatures soar into the 40s and winds pick up. In the South Australia state, officials say the ignition sources are already there and that there are millions of sparks ready to go if they break containment lines. One of the biggest evacuations in the country's history is underway, with 140,000 people trying to get out of fire zones in Victoria State. And speaking of wind, it looks like we could see some wind gusts up to 90 kilometers per hour here in Lethbridge today. But temperature-wise, it should be a fairly mild weekend. A complete look at your weather forecast is coming up right after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to our weather highlights for today and tomorrow in Lethbridge. Today, mix of sun and cloud with a high of 8 degrees, a high of 3 degrees is overnight. Tomorrow, coming up on Saturday, we're going to see lots of sunshine and a high of 6 degrees and a low of -3 over Saturday evening. Looking into Sunday, we got lots of sunshine again, so it's going to be a beautiful weekend. High of 3 degrees on Sunday. Monday and Tuesday also will see tons of sunshine with highs of 1 and 7 degrees for those days. Wednesday, we could see a possibility of some flurries with a high of -4 and a high of only -9 coming up on Thursday, with a mix of sun and cloud. But we won't think about those flurries just yet. That's a long time from now. The almanac says that the average high should be about -2 degrees, and we are reaching temperatures higher than that. The lows should be around -14. The high temperature on this day was back in 2001. It was 13 degrees, and the low was a freezing -43. That was back in 1950. The sun rose this morning at 8:28 a.m. and will be setting this afternoon at 4:43 p.m. So it does look like our days are starting to get a little bit longer. Victoria and Vancouver today will see some rain with highs of 11 and 10 degrees, a high of -3 up in Edmonton and a high of +3 in Calgary today. Both of those cities will see a mix of sun and cloud. Looking over to Saskatchewan, we'll see a possibility of flurries in both Saskatoon and Regina. Both of those cities will see a high of -6 today. -2 is the high expected in Winnipeg, and they are seeing a chance of flurries over there as well. Looking to Toronto, a mix of sun and cloud in that whole region, a high of 7 degrees, high of 5 degrees in Ottawa, and Montreal will see a high of 6 degrees today, and they could see a possibility of flurries later today as well. Looking to Atlantic Canada, Fredericton will see a high of 4 degrees with a chance of snow. Halifax, lots of clouds, a high of 5 degrees. 1 degree is the high in Charlottetown. They're going to see a mix of sun and cloud, possible flurries. Same thing for St. John's, except their high will only be a -1 today. That is your forecast. Here's a look at what's happening in your community.
Here's your Bridge City News Community Calendar. Lethbridge Legal Guidance is a non-profit society offering free legal advice to low-income Southern Albertans. It holds clinics on Tuesdays from 5 to 7 p.m. by appointment only. Some of the areas the society assists in include family, criminal, traffic, immigration, EI, and other issues. For more information, call 403-380-6338 or email lethbridgelegalguidance@telus.net. The Lethbridge Association of the Blind provides numerous activities for the blind and visually impaired in the Lethbridge area. These events include dinners with entertainment, local museum tours, and much more. For more information, call 403-942-1677 or email brownwj@shaw.ca. Big Brothers Big Sisters in Lethbridge is searching for volunteers to mentor children and youth in their various programs. Volunteers commit anywhere from 1 hour a week to 1 full year. They have many kids on their wait list that are looking for a big brother or sister. Make a difference in a child's life and start something big. For more information, call 403-328-9355 or email info.leth@bigbrothersbigsisters.ca. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
It's now time for your daily life hack, and it looks like we're doing a double header today. If you still need to go shopping for a new calendar, well, you might not have to. If you have a calendar lying around from 1992, you can use that as they are identical. But now here's a more useful life hack for you that's completely unrelated to the last one. If you have a bad odor around your house, drop 2 or 3 tablespoons of cinnamon on the floor and run the vacuum cleaner over it before you vacuum your house. The sweet scented spice will leave a pretty aroma behind as you clean. And there you go. That's been your daily life hack times 2. What's on your bucket list? One of my wishes is to see the ball drop in Times Square on New Year's Eve. Well, it didn't happen this year, but thousands did get to go see that on Tuesday night. Fireworks bursts and confetti fell as throngs of revelers cheered the start of 2020 in New York City. The crowd counted down the last seconds of 2019 as a luminescent crystal ball descended down a pole in Times Square. The massive crowd welcomed the arrival of 2020 and expressed some of their hopes and wishes for the new year.
It's going to be a great year. Why is that? Because God gives me another year and another day. It was said tonight to be all that God calls me to be.
Perfect way to start the year. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, serious. Things can always get better. You know, there's always a way for things to get better, and you know, I really see that we can all become who we want to be.
It was amazing. I'm spending the first year with my wife, so I'm so happy. It was amazing. It was really such a big experience, no matter how cold it was, but I think we were together, so the performance, everything was perfect.
Happy New Year! That is. Happy New Year!
My friend. All the things happened to the Jews, Judaism in New York and also in Monse. We want this year to be clear for everybody, like love everybody, we want peace for everybody. Happy New Year!
I think everyone's gonna be nicer this year.
Was 2019 a mean year?
Yes,
I know.
Expand on that. Why do you
I
think
didn't
that
see
is?
that till
it was a mean year. 2020 is gonna be a nicer year. Everybody's gonna be nicer this year.
This is the year we actually figure out about how to save the environment, how to get Trump impeached. I mean, everything happens this year. 2020, this is our year, this is the world's year. Let's do it. Let's go.
5 Christian families recently lost their homes and fields in southern Mexico for not participating in traditional religious festivals. Requests for government intervention were ignored, and nearby churches are providing the displaced believers with emergency supplies and lodging. Issa Vasquez with the Global News Alliance reports.
5 families were driven out and forced to become internal refugees because they profess a faith different from the traditional religion. 33 evangelical Christians were forced to leave the Napita neighborhood of San Cristobal de las Casas. Maria, daughter of Pastor Octavio, manages the logistics of caring and providing for these brothers and sisters who are now homeless. We are looking at all the needs they have, but we have also talked to the government authorities about a quick solution. And the solution we want is for them to go home soon, that they will be able to return to their community and have religious freedom. The authorities have not yet given us any information, and we are asking God to work out their return, and above all, that they might have a freedom to worship. Pastor Alberto Garcia of the King Jesus House of Prayer Baptist Church, together with Pastor Ramon Hernandez, has distributed more than 600 pounds of basic supplies, which were collected in the municipality of Las Margaritas and the city of Monterrey. This was necessary because those displaced from Napita left with just the clothes on their backs. They had to leave behind all of their belongings. Esdras Alonso, director of Eagle's Wings, manages the legal process. We are caring for and encouraging our brothers and sisters who suffer from religious intolerance in their communities and are sometimes driven out, while others are harassed and pressured to abandon their faith in order to stay in their communities. So our association is committed to vulnerable groups, not only because of religious persecution, but sometimes for other issues that the government ignores or says don't exist. We are with a group from Napita now, but there are other groups who for 10 years have been displaced and the government still has not given them a solution. From Chiapas, Mexico, this is Isa Vasquez.
Up next, BCN's Hel Roberts speaks with Lethbridge's interim police chief about the drug crisis in our city. That's coming up in the second half of our show right after this quick break.